Today we are presenting the European Data Protection Supervisor's Annual Report of Activities for 2012. As our mandate will end by mid-January 2014, this is likely to be the last annual report presented by the current team of supervisors. 2012 was again a very productive year for the EDPS. Special efforts were made to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our organization in the present climate of austerity. In this context, we completed a comprehensive strategic review with the help of our internal and external stakeholders, which resulted in clear objectives for 2013-14, the adoption of internal rules of procedure covering all EDPS activities, and the adoption of an annual management plan. As a result, the institution reached full maturity in 2012. In the course of that year, we again set new benchmarks in different areas of activity. In the supervision of EU institutions and bodies processing personal data, we interacted with more data protection officers in more institutions and bodies than ever before. We also saw the effects of our new enforcement policy. Most institutions and bodies, including many agencies, are making good progress in complying with the data protection regulation, although some should still increase their efforts. In the consultation on new legislative measures, we issued a record number of opinions on a wide range of subjects. The review of the EU legal framework for data protection was at the top of our agenda. However, the implementation of the Stockholm programme in the area of freedom, security and justice and the digital agenda, as well as issues in the internal market such as financial sector reform and in public health and consumer affairs, also had an impact on data protection. We also increased our cooperation with other supervisory authorities.
Our activities in 2012 continued to grow both in scale and scope. We began integrating the principle of accountability in our supervision of the EU administrations and bodies, although the practicalities have yet to be defined in the data protection reform rules. In this context, we invited various EU bodies, including all heads of EU agencies, to begin reflecting on some of the tools that can be deployed by EU administration, such as internal compliance reports and audits. As such tools can help them reduce some administrative burdens, we are eager to continue discussions with them on how they can integrate these tools. When an institution draws up measures affecting data protection rights, it should ensure that proper attention is paid to data protection principles before the measure is adopted. One of the most effective mechanisms for ensuring this is to involve data protection officers at the outset to seek their expert internal advice. We see their role as the key to any successful accountability program, and so we will continue in our support of their activities. While institutions and bodies are accountable for protecting the personal data they process, we continue to monitor compliance and enforce where necessary, notably through visits and general monitoring surveys. Visits to EU institutions and bodies in 2012 proved to be very effective in raising awareness and committing management to respect the data protection regulation. We will continue to engage in proactive dialogue with management in cases where we have identified a compliance issue to avoid taking stronger enforcement measures. In 2012, we offered support to institutions and bodies with guidance on specific themes. We will continue to offer such support, and by the end of this year we will issue guidelines on e-communications, the processing of the personal data of visitors to EU websites, and the security of personal data processed using mobile devices. In the area of freedom, security and justice, the questions of necessity and proportionality has been a recurrent theme. In the next few months, we will closely follow the reform of Europol and the package on smart borders. We will also closely monitor negotiations with third countries on data protection agreements. We will reinforce our cooperation with other data protection authorities in order to promote consistent data protection throughout Europe, with particular regard for the framework of the coordinated supervision of the EU's large-scale IT systems. In conclusion, we will increase our efforts to raise awareness and compliance with data protection principles. Data protection should be considered as a permanent part of good administration, and the respect of the fundamental rights of the EU staff and other individuals should not be seen as an obstacle in the performance of key duties.
In closing, I would like to say a few words about the ongoing review of the EU legal framework for data protection, as both the Parliament and the Council are close to deciding their mid-term positions. The need for stronger, more effective and more consistent protection of personal data across the EU in all EU policy areas has never been greater. The growing impact of technological development and globalization in our personal lives means that we now all need better protection of our privacy and personal data. We also need to build trust, to boost business in Europe, and we need to ensure more privacy by design, more accountability of services that impact on our privacy. In spite of the heavy lobbying around these proposals, let me just emphasize that the benefits of new technology for industry and government should not and need not to be at the expense of our fundamental rights to privacy and data protection. The integration of data protection principles in technical innovation can add significant value, both in terms of efficiency and lower costs, if privacy is built into the design of processes from the outset. A smart, sustainable and inclusive Europe, a cornerstone of the EU 2020 strategy, can only be achieved with stronger and more effective data protection. The building blocks for realizing this vision are now on the table. We just need to be brave and ambitious to take the right decisions. Thank you for listening.